Welcome to the Bottom Line Podcast with Nicholas Kusmich, where we discuss what matters most, the bottom line, featuring the top minds in their industry. Now, let's get started.
Hey everyone, Nicholas here, host of the Bottom Line Podcast, where I connect with industry leaders and sleepers to discuss what matters most, and that is the bottom line. But today, I've got Chad here with me from Rise 25, who has done thousands of interviews with successful entrepreneurs and CEOs. So we're kind of flipping the script today, and he's going to be interviewing me. So Chad, thanks for taking the time to do this. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me today, Nicholas. This is the first time I've spoken with you on this podcast. If you could just maybe take me through some of your background. I'm sure a lot of listeners are already familiar with you, but for those who aren't, just kind of let us know how you got to where you are.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Coles Notes version is I never in a million years dreamed that I'd be doing what I was doing today. I was kind of like, some people are born into entrepreneurship. I was kind of forced into entrepreneurship. And what I mean by that was I was an only child. I witnessed my father have his first heart attack when I was 4 years old. And this led to a bunch of situations with the family, essentially meaning that by the time I was about 16 or 17, that I was forced to be kind of the primary breadwinner for my family. So that led me to trying all sorts of things, everything from stuffing envelopes to filling out surveys to multi-level marketing stuff and everything in between. But after failure, what it did introduce me to was what some people might know as the internet marketing world. Now, back then, it wasn't quite known as that. But yeah, introduced me to the internet marketing world, which then one day led me to this interesting piece of social media software on the internet called Facebook. And I think I was literally just in the right place at the right time. Facebook had opened up their advertising platform. And I had always been told in business, if you've got a product, you need eyeballs to take a look at that. And Facebook was offering the opportunity to buy eyeballs at a discount and show them my offer. So started delving into that. I can't say this officially, Chad, but I was probably one of the first 100 private advertisers on the platform. And that was back in, 2008-ish or so. And the rest, I guess they say, is history. One thing led to another. We ended up working with great clients. We've built this great brand in this business as a result. And we're still doing the same thing today. So that's the Coles Notes version.
I know you said failure after failure. What was your first kind of entrepreneurial experience that maybe lasted for, longer than an afternoon lemonade stand or something like that?
Chad, I don't know if you might be familiar with this, but have you ever heard, and this is not quite exactly entrepreneurial, but have you ever heard of Cutco knives?
Yes, of course.
So of course, I was one of the salespeople, and I just remember going to an interview. I thought it was this great thing because back then when I was in high school, minimum wage in my town was about $4.65. That dates how far back that might have been. And the magazine ad basically said, hey, you can make $12.25 an hour. I'm like, well, that's 3 times the minimum wage. I showed up to an interview. There's like 60 people in the room. Some guy cuts a rope in half with a knife and says, you're going to be selling these. I'm like, well, all right. Very quickly, I became known as Mr. Ultimate. And that's because one of the most expensive knife sets that cost about $2,500 was called the Ultimate Knife Set. Mm-hmm. And I figured if I'm going to spend time in someone's home trying to sell them something, I can either sell them the $80 knife or the $2,500 Ultimate Set. Might as well sell the Ultimate Set. So I got dubbed Mr. Ultimate. And that was kind of my first foray into entrepreneurship, and it went very well. I mean, I learned a lot of things along the way, obviously, and I tripped over myself a whole lot, but that was my first taste at like, oh, I can control my destiny. I can make decisions and I can affect my outcomes by doing, following certain principles and moving forward that way.
Yeah. So, a lot of people are probably just scared of doing sales. Obviously you're not. In fact, you're willing to, try and sell somebody a very expensive product compared to one that might be the most likely one that they might buy. Is there any tricks or attitude that you have to maintain in order to do that?
I think so I'll take a step back by saying I actually don't like sales as is generally perceived by the marketplace, right? I remember going into, a car showroom and having that like sales guy forcing me to buy the car, or going to a clothing store and the guy's like not letting me off the hook. And I remember specifically an instance where he's like taking clothes and putting them at the cash and ringing it in before I even ever said anything. So that was like my impression of sales at the time. And I hated that. But what I did do was I did have conviction. I had confidence in things that I felt like would bring a monumental change into someone's life. Well, you said, what does it have to do with knives? Like maybe I was just brainwashed by the Cutco people, but at that time, I honestly thought this was the best thing that someone could do in terms of the knives that they keep in their kitchen. It was a lifetime guarantee. In fact, it wasn't a lifetime guarantee. It was what they called a forever guarantee. So this would be the last set of knives that anyone would ever have to buy, and they can pass down from generation to generation. The quality was so much better. The build was so much better. It's far more sanitary. So more than anything, it was never really about trying to convince anybody to buy anything. It was more about this is so important for you to have, and really having that conviction behind it, that I just almost didn't let people off the hook. And I was so conviction and passionate about what it is that I was selling that I think made the whole sales process far more fun and far more easier and less kind of icky, if you will.
So you just have to believe.
I've heard someone say that in a conversation that he who has the most confidence generally wins. So yes, I mean, for the most part, you have to be behind something that you believe in, and then you have to have confidence in the thing that you're selling. And I think the most time that people fail in sales, whatever that is, and keep in mind, I'm in sales with my children every single day. There's some sort of negotiation that has to happen, but it's he who believes in their message and he who believes in the thing that they stand behind and has the confidence behind it. If your confidence outshines someone else's confidence or lack thereof in their ability to get a result, that determines who it is. So yeah, you really just got to believe in it and stand behind it, and get behind things that actually matter to you.
So your entrepreneurial experience kind of led you into marketing and kind of being a marketing expert. Tell me about your attitude toward traditional marketing funnels and why they might be ineffective for selling high ticket items.
Well, Chad, I'm going to have to get the swear jar out, because in my world, the word funnel is an F word. And every time someone says it, I request them to put a $20 bill in my bucket, right? Somewhere, someday, Chad, somebody came up with this concept of the funnel. And I mean, it's so infiltrated the world that I even had my barber talk to me about funnels. So whoever came up with this concept, kudos to them. In concept, or in theory, this is the idea, is that you put out some sort of a client acquisition somewhere out to the world, you dump a whole people in the top, and the role of the funnel is to sift through them all to take only your best people and put them out the end so that you can have conversations about selling whatever it is that you're trying to sell. Now, this was never challenged. This idea was just only like held on to as this is the way we sell and market things. But I want people to think about even the very metaphor of the funnel itself. So my kids were playing in the pool. I jumped in the pool with them, but I happened to take a funnel with me. I keep funnels all around here for samples. And I happened to take a funnel with me and a mug. And I scooped up water out of the pool in one hand, and I held the funnel in the other hand, and I dumped the water into the funnel. Now, what do you think happened? Every ounce of water that I put in through the top of the funnel came out the bottom. That's just kind of how they work, right? Mm-hmm. So right from the metaphor in and of itself, this idea of putting things through the top and allowing the funnel to sift and sort so only the best comes out the bottom, that's a sieve. That's not a funnel. That's how you mine for gold. Secondly, when I threw that water from the cup into the top of my funnel, do you think the water came out faster or slower than if I just dumped it upside down? Now, I'll give you the answer for those who are thinking about it. It came out slower. Now, I don't know about you, Chad, but anytime I'm looking to get a customer, I'm not looking to slow down the process. I'm actually looking to speed it up. Like, how fast can I get the person from point A, prospect interested, to point B, now new customer or client? The funnel actually slows down the process of it. So all this talk about funnels, and I call it one of the greatest myths that has hit the marketing world, is that a lead needs to be nurtured before they're willing to make a transactional decision. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certainly certain prospects who need to be nurtured before making a buying decision, but there are also certain prospects who don't give a rip about being nurtured. They've got a problem. They want a solution. It's like if I had a leak in my faucet, no pun intended. Now we're talking about water and funnels, but if I had a leak in my faucet, or if I was in the dead of winter and my heater stopped working, Do you think I want to go to some plumber's website or HVAC person's website and they're like, let me introduce you to a 30-minute webinar training on how to fix your faucet? I don't care how to fix the damn faucet. I want someone to show up at my house right now because my kitchen's being flooded. So in the same way, I see funnels or nurture, or however one people describe it, like speed bumps. And if we're going to use that metaphor, just for example, I want you to imagine that you are an ambulance driver. And in your back seat is someone with an emergency that has to get to the hospital. You have one of two ways to get to the hospital. Way number one is, let's go into a 1964 Ford Pinto that's barely running, max speed 30 miles an hour, and let's pick a route that is super windy and is filled with speed bumps. That's option number one. Option number two is putting you in a 488 Ferrari Pista, right? And not only that, you have a designated driver who knows how to drive that thing bloody fast, and you put them on a straightaway, beeline direct to the hospital so that they can get the solutions that they're looking for. Now, I know this is an obvious question, and I'm making it rhetorical, but if you were the sick person in the back of the vehicle, which would you choose? Now, obviously, the Ferrari 488 Pista, right? You want to get there as soon as possible. It's the same for prospects out there in our marketplace. They've got a problem, they want a solution, and you are the ambulance driver. And you have a choice to take them the long, slow road, bumpy way in the least effective vehicle, or you can put them in a fast vehicle that's a straight beeline. And so my whole thing around marketing is to address the reality that there is a prospect out there, a percentage of your market that says, I don't need all the traditional marketing hoopla, the circus, the nuance, the dance, all of that. There are people with problems that need solutions. And if you happen to have a solution, then the worst thing you can do for that prospect is stick a funnel in between you and your solution. In other words, let's find the people who want the solution, who are already a yes, rather than convincing the no's that they need to become a yes through some long, lengthy, difficult process. I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, Chad, but does that help kind of understand the concept?
Yeah, absolutely. How did you really, that you kind of learn about marketing funnels in business school and things like that.
Yes.
How did you realize that maybe those were speed bumps rather than maybe the greatest thing in the world?
Actually, thank you for asking that, because when I talk to this about people, the only reason I discovered this was because I was the guy in the back of the ambulance, not literally, but figuratively, right? A great example of this. I was scrolling through my iPhone. I was looking at Instagram, and I saw this. I'm what you call a price insensitive, immediate buyer. Like, if I see something that I want, I'm going to buy it right away. I don't get in my way. Let me just do the thing. My wife hates that, by the way, but it is what it is. It's part of my DNA. So I'm scrolling through Instagram. I see this great ad for some guy it was a beautifully done ad. He talked about some interesting neuro hack in the brain that can cause anybody to overcome procrastination in 7 seconds or less by applying this one thing. Chatty had me hook, line, and sinker. I was like, I procrastinate. I got ADHD. Give me this damn 7-second hack. And in my mind, before I even clicked on the ad, I said, if this solution is $2,500 or less, I'm going to buy it right away. No questions asked. Let's just go. So I'm ready to go. I pushed the ad. I pushed yes, let's go. I get over to the page. I'm ready to buy the product. And guess what's there? It's an opt-in page for a webinar.
Oh.
And I immediately jump shipped. And I said, no, thanks, not for me. And this guy who could have made $2,500 that day instead put a funnel in between me. So the answer to the question is, I realized that I was that person. Like, if I want a solution, I'm not going to jump through speed bumps and nurtures and emails. I'm going to try to find the person direct, message them direct, text them direct, and say, look, I've got a problem. It looks like you have a solution. Can we talk about if that's a good fit? In fact, I'll give you one more story to prove the point. There was a guy who was referred to me for like LinkedIn marketing services, and he was a referral from someone I know, like, and trust. So I was like, you know what? I'm in. Like, you don't have to sell me anything. And he goes, no. We should really get on a discovery call. I'm like, dude, just send me the payment link. I'm already in. And he goes, no. We got to get on a discovery call. So I humored him and I got on the discovery call. And this guy, I don't really like talking bad about people, but like worst salesperson ever. You could tell he's reading a sales script. Like, hey, Chad, so tell me, what are the pains you have about your LinkedIn marketing? And can you dream about what that is costing you? And I had to stop him right off the bat. And I said, dude, I know you're reading a script and it's okay. I'm here for you. Can we just bypass all this and send me the payment link? And he goes, no, 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 I have to go through this. And I said, thank you, but no thanks. See you later. I'm gone.
Oh,
Because he just insisted that someone who is prepared to give him money dance through a marketing process. So when it lit in my own mind that, hey, I'm like this, I started to have conversations with other people and realized other people are like this too. Not everybody, but a portion of the people. And as a result of that, I said, well, if I were to sell anything to me, how would I do that? And I don't know why this question has never been asked in the internet online marketing industry, but apparently everybody assumes that everybody needs a funnel to be nurtured and go through this whole thing. And as soon as we discovered this and we deployed it in all of our businesses, we started to see his sales come in way faster, way higher conversions, way less, resistance to the thing. And it just kind of was a game changer for us.
so take me through that process. I guess it's called the fast track process. Take me through that, and maybe how it differs from the funnel, or just take me through that, and we can probably figure that out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So there's, I think, a couple of key distinctions we need to make before I take you through the process. One distinction is, what is a funnel then, Nick? Because everyone has their own definitions of a funnel. My definition of a funnel is essentially something that starts with a gated opt-in. In other words, I'm going to give you something, but before I give you this thing, you have to give me your name, email address, and maybe a phone number. So it's gated to say, give me something, and in exchange for your information, I'm going to give you some form of training information or whatever. That's the beginning. And that's what, to me, identifies the start of a funnel. And then it's a series of follow-up and nurture sequences that eventually tries to get them to make a purchase. So that could be a bunch of emails. It could be a webinar. It could be content. It could be a book. It could be a live event. It could be whatever. It doesn't even matter. But the object here is to nurture the person through to the other end. So that's the definition in my books of a funnel. Mm-hmm. The second point of clarity I think we need to make so people can really understand this is the realization that prospects, people who want to buy from you, fit into one of two categories. Category number one is what I would call an information seeker. And category number two is something that I would call a solution seeker. Now, for the sake of super ease, let's just define those and then we'll talk about the fast track. An information seeker is just that. It's someone who is constantly hoarding and looking for more information. They're like, what information can I get? Now, the reason that they're doing that is because their mindset usually is, I've got more time than I have money. And so I don't have the money to spend on a solution. So I want to figure out, how do I do this solution myself? It's the person who says, I can't afford the plumber, but I can't afford the hour or two to study on YouTube how to fix my leak. Mm-hmm. So they've got more time than money. And generally, how you know they're an information seeker is they look for just in case information instead of just in time information. They're like, I don't do webinars, but I'm going to go take a course on how to do webinars because maybe one day I'll do a webinar. So again, you can see kind of the mindset of them. They move slowly. They've got more time than money, and they're constantly not looking for a solution. They're looking for information. Now, on the flip side, you have a solution seeker, and they're essentially exactly what they sound like. They don't want information. They don't care about information. They want a solution, and they want it now. On the contrary, they've got more money than they do time. So the worst thing you can do is stick things in their way that takes up their time. They rather pay for the solution to not be bothered by that. These people look for just-in-time solutions rather than just-in-case solutions. Now, if we know that to be true, that there's two types of prospects out there, info seekers, which are just freebie seekers, or solution seekers, the people with money willing to pay a top dollar for a solution right now, then think about the type of person a traditional funnel attracts. Usually a traditional funnel starts by saying, let me give you some free training or information or a case study or a guide or a book or what. By the very nature of a funnel, you are attracting an information seeker who is, again, not necessarily looking to buy, which is why they need to be nurtured over time, which is why they may or may not buy, and conversion rates are ultra low. The alternative to me then, keeping everything in context to what we discussed here, is a fast track is essentially an ungated landing page. So it's an ungated page that doesn't require name, email, phone number, or anything like that. It gives you, rather than information, it presents an idea. And that's a very, very key difference here. Rather than saying, let me teach you something, it's let me show you something that'll be beneficial to you. So you're offering an idea over information. And the key element here is information seekers buy based on utility. They're doing the math in their head. It's like, if I put this much money in, will I get this much money out? Like, tell me about all the features I get. What are the 14 things that come with it? And does it come in beige? A solution seeker buys based on identity. They buy things that are basically social signals to the world. In other words, nobody buys a Ferrari for the practicality of it. Okay, I get heat all the time. I drive an $800,000 McLaren, and people are like, that's the stupidest thing you could buy. And on one hand, I agree. I'm not buying it for the air conditioning or the Apple CarPlay. I'm buying it because it's a social signal to the world around me, and it's because it's an identity purchase. So just by understanding that, then the fast track offers a non-gated page that offers not information, but an idea. And the idea speaks to the identity of the person, not the utility of what they are looking for, and then invites that person to take the next step. Now, in some cases, that's buy the thing I just told you to buy, in which cases, okay. Or if it's a really high ticket thing, it's book a call for us to discuss whether or not this is a good fit for you. So that's it at its like very fundamental levels. But if people can just understand the difference between an info seeker and a solution seeker, and what causes one to buy versus what causes the other to buy, everything will change in their business.
How many solution seekers do you think are out there that are like you, that are frustrated that they go to a page and they have to go through some song and dance before they can get what they actually want? I'm guessing most businesses assume that everybody's just an information seeker based on the websites I've visited.
I think it's such a great insight, Chad. Everyone assumes that everyone's an information seeker for two reasons. One, because that's what we've been fed in the marketing world. Right? It's just, oh, you've got to give information in order for someone to transact with you. Although I've given plenty of examples of how that wouldn't be the case. But I think secondly, is we make the mistake that Ogilvy says back in the day, that you are not always your prospect. And what I mean by that is most people who are marketers, because they've been brought up in marketing, are by nature information seekers. And as a result, they think everybody's an information seeker. So I've got to market the way that I was marketed to in the past. What they don't realize is that there's a big section of people, and I can't really, I don't have the statistics. I don't know if there's any way to actually know, but I would say in my business, here's what I can say actually. In my business, the first 3/4 of my career was built around being the best darn information seeking funnel in existence. And we cracked the code, and it was something that I called the GFO funnel. And I thought I reached the pinnacle of all marketing because my information seeker funnel was better than anything else on the planet. The numbers were so much better, et cetera, et cetera. And then I had this dawn on me about, wait a second, I wouldn't even go through my own funnel. So let me design a process, a fast track that would work for me. And the moment I did that, here's what happened for me. And this can't be true for everybody, so who knows? But our sales went up so much so that our sales doubled. Our conversion rate was much higher. The conversion process was so much easier, which meant there was less taxing on the systems and the people and the processes that would need to get there, so that I closed down any element of my business that required an information seeker funnel. So I guess if I had to conclude, and by the way, the customers who are solution seeker versus information seekers, they're way better to work with. Like, they don't complain. They just want the solution. They're not, tied up in the utility of it. So I would have to say, if I had to guess, that maybe up to 50% of the market are solution seekers and 50% of the market is information seekers. If we had to be super ultra conservative, even if we said 25 or 33% of the market were information, were solution seekers and the rest were information seekers, would that not be enough for businesses to realize that you're leaving anywhere from 25 to 50% of the potential revenue on the table from people like me who would never go through a traditional process? So I don't know the numbers exactly, Chad, but that's my guess from my own experience.
So there's clearly, I guess, easy money out there that businesses are not taking advantage of, or they're just ignoring or
Yes.
assuming is not available. Tell me how your fast track process works compared, not even compared, just how the fast track process works.
Well, so here's what I could tell you from just real live people who've been through our process. Okay, I'll give you a couple examples that show different ways people have been trying to generate leads for their high ticket services. And then when they moved over to Fast Track, what happened? So Game Theory is a great example. Game Theory is a company that can be best understood as college planners. What they've done is they've hacked the college application system so they can tell any parent which colleges are hiring, how to get grants for it. And ultimately their big pitch is get 2 years of college for the price of 4, right? Or 4 years for the price of 2, like whichever it is. You're essentially getting into the colleges that you want, and you'll know well in advance before you even apply for them. They sell this solution for anywhere, I think, between like $6,000 to $10,000 to a parent, because the parent's saving hundreds of thousands in college education. So they, like most, have been opted into the whole marketing world where they say, well, you need a webinar. The only way you're going to do this is through a webinar. So they had this webinar funnel going that are generating like leads into the webinar for $20. Most of the people didn't show up because, of course, they're busy parents. And then when they did show up, only a small percentage stayed to the pitch. And when they ended up booking a call, the call booking ratio worked out to about $400 or $500 a call to get a qualified lead on the phone. They came across one of our ads. They're like, I wonder if this could work for us. So instead of the webinar process, we built a fast track for them. And everyone knows what that is. It's a non-gated page that says, here's an idea. If you like the idea, let's talk about it. I have a video testimonial from Danny, one of the co-founders, who basically says they 4x'd the volume of qualified calls while paying 1/10 the cost for the qualified calls. So their calls were coming in at $30 instead of 300. And instead of doing, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was 4 times the volume of leads that they were getting, so much so that they had to hire new salespeople. And they went on to have some of the best years that they had when they initiated. It's a great example of one person who's using a webinar funnel. I'll give you one more example. There's a company called Founder, Nathan Chan. They teach in this particular element. They are coaching e-commerce business owners how to grow their businesses. And they had what was known in the space as an ascension model. So they went out to the market and they sold anywhere from $47 to $247 courses. And the idea was, if you bought a $47 course or a $247 course, over time, you might buy a couple more courses. And then at some point, one of their team would reach out to you and say, hey, Chad, thanks for buying our programs. We're noticing that you're going through them. How's everything going? Would you like to actually talk about mentorship and how someone can coach you throughout this process? And that was their process. Were they getting sales calls? Of course they were, because there were people who had bought the course and they were interested in mentorship. Their main problem was the time involved from the moment they bought their first course until they actually bought a coaching program. That was anywhere from 6 months to a year, because everyone knows when you buy a course, you're not going to go through it right away. It takes time and effort and all this and all that. Plus, most people who spend $47 on something aren't going to spend 10 grand on something. Like, that's just math. But anyways, their biggest issue was it took them 6 months to get there. So they're like, I wonder if the fast track can work for us. Short answer, deploy the fast track. And now on average, from I don't know who they are, but I saw an ad and I clicked on it to have a phone call, to selling a $10,000 program is about 72 hours. I saw an ad, I clicked on the ad, I booked a call, I had a call with one of the reps sold me on it. Here's my 10 grand to join the program, or whatever their price point is. And so their biggest takeaway was crunching time from a 6-month sales window down to a 72-hour sales window. And I could go on, but it just gives you the idea that when you're speaking to the right people and getting out of their way, the people want to buy and participate in whatever it is that you have to offer.
So what does a business have to do, as we kind of wrap things up here? What does a business have to do to maybe get started on implementing the fast track process, or just to implement it itself? Change of mindset? What else?
So perfect. First step is definitely changing the mindset and realizing that the process that you're currently using is most likely attracting the wrong lead, the info seeker. I think the biggest mistake that most people make is, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to put an ungated page and we're going to do a webinar without an opt-in page. That's the same thing, but they're missing the nuance because they're still using information seeker languaging to speak to them. What I like to say is, you would never sell a McLaren like it was a Mercedes to a Mazda buyer. Everyone gets that when you talk about that. However, that's exactly what business people are doing. They have their McLaren, their fancy, expensive, high ticket thing, but they're selling it like it's a Mercedes, and they're getting in front of Mazda buyers and they're wondering, why aren't they buying? Wrong crowd, wrong process, wrong vehicle. So first of the mindset, clearly, first and foremost, if you can work out the mindset stuff, then the biggest takeaway, however you want to deploy it, is to recognize the nuance of speaking to solution seekers where they're at, what they need, understanding what I call an opulent value mindset. Again, solution seekers are generally opulent or premium, ultra premium type buyers. Their mindset on how they need to be talked to, on how they buy, on what triggers them to buy is very different. And the moment you have a mismatch where you're like, hey, McLaren buyer, let me tell you about my Mazda, the whole thing falls apart. So it's the mechanism is easy. It's an ungated page like we've been talking about. It's the nuance of understanding the difference between an info seeker and a solution seeker that's really going to cause and allow things to go a lot better that way.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, this is the first episode of your podcast. What can the listeners look forward to on this podcast?
So here's what I'm interested in. It's called The Bottom Line, and there's kind of a double meaning in that. One of the meanings is everyone talks about all sorts of numbers in their business, right? Top line revenue, this, total revenue, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, for me, the only thing that matters is what is the bottom line profits? Like what caused the bottom? Because if you're making $1 million a year, but you're spending $1.5 million a year, your bottom line sucks. I don't want to learn anything about how you made your million if I know that you're spending 1.5 to make that million. So on the one level, it's bottom line, what really matters in terms of profit. The other thing is the bottom line has that nuanced idea of let's just talk about what matters. Like, let's not talk about the fluff. Let's not talk about anecdotal stuff. Let's just go to the heart of what is actually the bottom line that's driving success, that's driving people forward. So I say, as I said in our intro, this is where I get to interview not only industry leaders that everybody knows about and the massive success they're having in their business, but what I'm also excited to do is talk to the sleepers. And these are the people you'll never know about. They're not coaches. They're not experts. But because of the business that I run, I get to look behind the scenes of many of these businesses that you'll never hear about. But they're absolutely crushing it. And their ideas and their mindsets and their bottom line principles is stuff that we're going to pull out. So if you're interested in growing your business with only the stuff that matters, no fluff, no filler, but all killer, that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on for this podcast.
Okay, awesome. Can't wait to listen to future episodes. Hey, Nick, great to talk to you. Thanks so much for having me today. Really appreciate it.
Chad, the honor was mine. Thank you for taking the time to interview me and kicking this off for us.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Bottom Line Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.